Welcome to The One Inside, an internal family systems podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Sollenberger. I'm excited that you and all of your parts have taken time to be with me and all of my parts. If you are a coach, a client, a therapist, if you are in business or education, and you're curious about the IFS model, you are in the right place. Now, let's see what happens on today's podcast. Hey everyone. On today's episode, I'm talking with Cindy Brown. Cindy is a yoga instructor who talks about how moving the body helps quiet the mind. I love that, and I've experienced that too. I'm guessing you have. We talk a lot about ways to access self. I think it's really practical and really helpful. So I wanted to share one way that I practice accessing self. IFS is sometimes called a therapy of subtraction. As we unblend from parts through various methods, sometimes just acknowledging them and asking for space, the more we subtract from parts, the more we have access to self. So one of the ways that I can have access to more self energy is by journaling. So this week, I just want to tell you a story that happened that's real and true. I like to talk about real and true things, as you probably know by now. So this week I was really angry. And I'm not someone who gets really angry, but I was pretty angry. Actually, I think a part just said that. I think a part just said, I'm not someone that gets really angry. I'm going to have to take note of that. I think this part wants you to know that I'm not an angry person. Okay, that feels better just saying that. Okay, so this week I was really angry. And I noticed this tug. Cindy and I talk a little bit about how parts tug. So I noticed this tug between an angry part who felt really justified in being angry and another part who kept saying to me, I kept hearing in my head, you're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be angry. The other person that you're angry with will shut down and it will just be worse. So I got out my journal. And I just wanted to write about what happened. I thought, well, I'm just going to write about what happened that made me angry, and that might help. So I began to write about what happened. This person did this, I did this, etc. And then I noticed my handwriting was getting harder and bigger on the page. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I just let my angry part yell and scream, big letters. I took up probably 4 pages in my journal and just screamed and yelled and said all the things that this angry part wanted to say unfiltered. And then when that felt complete, there was another part that came in, and all of a sudden I noticed I was writing really small, 1 word on a line, very small, very succinct. And this part I'm going to call my wall. And my wall said, it doesn't matter. This person doesn't matter. I'm not angry. I don't care at all. I don't care if I ever talk to this person again. I thought, okay, well, that clearly is my wall. So I let my wall say what it wanted to say in an extreme way, and it felt really good. So the angry part talked, the wall part talked, and then I felt my body just drop down. I felt relaxed in my body. I felt myself smile. My face softened. And then I wrote, hi, I hear you. Thank you for expressing yourself to me. I am with you. I think you're really going to like Cindy. She's lovely. I think you're going to like the podcast. There's lots of good IFS tools. There's lots of good stuff about yoga and mindfulness and guided meditation. At the end of the podcast, Cindy leads us in a beautiful guided meditation, and I just ended at the end of the meditation because it's lovely. Enjoy.
Okay. I love that picture behind you.
Thank you. So the picture behind me is, just so I can describe it for people, is that it's a picture that we actually got at a yard sale. We love yard sailing. So we got this picture at a yard sale, and it's got this beautiful white frame, and it's a porch. There's a hammock and looking like a house, and there's a hammock on the porch, and you're looking out to the ocean, and it's gorgeous.
I love it.
I'm pretending that's where I am and not in this rainy, New England rainy day.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, it almost does look real enough that that's your window.
Let's pretend. Let's pretend. Tell me what's going on around you. What's outside your window?
Well, I'm right next to a big window, a picture window. So I have some shrubs outside, and there's a beautiful crab apple tree that's in bloom, and a big expanse of lawn. And then there's a little street, and then there's more green on the other side of the street, trees and pleasant.
Oh, that sounds lovely. Well, and it's this weird time of year where things are blooming and the grass is coming up and it's beautiful. But I don't know, you can hear I have allergies, like from everything blooming, like all at once. The allergies are so bad.
They are. I'm fortunate, not so bad. But yeah, that's sort of the downside of the beautiful blossoms and trees.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So I appreciate you joining with me today. And you and I worked together. We both were program assistants at a level 1 training in Boston. And one of the things that I love about you is that you are combining IFS with yoga. And you taught me about, I was telling you about how I was getting these headaches and I kept wrinkling my
brow.
brows. And you told me this like super cool little trick.
Did that have the sound with it as well?
I think so.
Yeah, there's a particular sound. That area is what they call your third eye area in yoga, the energy area. And there are some sounds like that you can bring into use with yoga that will calm an area like that. And the sound that goes with that one is like the letter M, 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 like mm. And if you were able in a place where you could do child's pose, you could have your forehead right on the mat and very gently let your head sway side to side as you inhale, and on the exhale, and it's very calming. I know I remember that moment with you.
I remember that too. And it's so funny. Like, even as you're talking about it right now, I'm like, I'm just feeling calmer, even though I'm not doing it. I'm imagining doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm imagining doing it. And just by imagining it, I'm like, oh, that sounds so nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a comforting sound and just to think about. So I think for the moment, excuse me, what might have just happened is any other thoughts we have just kind of went to the sideline and we could be in the present with something kind of pleasant. So the whole idea of mindfulness and why the different branches of yoga can be so helpful to us.
Wow. So talk a little bit about how that does help people that maybe like thoughts or I don't know, sort of I think sort of a lot of us get into our heads a little bit. And
Yeah, because it's very much a mind-body thing.
thank you. Thanks for what I was trying to say.
Yeah, well, you're reminding me that I came to mind-body practices before IFS. And actually, as preparing for this, I was looking through notes from, my resume, so to speak. And I've been a therapist a little over 20 years, and half of it's been before IFS. But I realized that I've always been, in those first, the first half, I was always a mind-body person. And I guess it all started, I was a therapist a couple years, and then I went to a really intense training at the Mind Body Medical Institute. It was 7 days in a row. I think it's now called the Henry Benson Institute. I think that's what it's called. And I learned all about how thoughts and feelings and stress influence our minds and our bodies and all of their methods, which was really kind of a Western medicine meeting Eastern, was all about teaching people how to bring about their relaxation response, which is the opposite of the fight or flight response. And the methods they used were a lot of guided meditation, some yoga, and breath work. And this was really cool because, this was run by doctors and at a hospital at the time. And to be doing these kind of Eastern things was really cool. So that's kind of a long intro into what you're asking me. But that was my starting point before IFS. And that idea of how does yoga help? It's really about using yogic methods, mindfulness, being in the moment, to come into the present by focusing on something neutral or pleasant. And when you do that, whatever else is troubling you, your anxious part, your problem-solving part, your analyzer, they tend to settle. Because believe it or not, even though we think we can think two things at the same time, we really can't. So if you're bringing all your focus onto that pleasant, neutral object, which is what we're taught to practice in yoga, then the other thoughts do kind of go to the sideline. It really works.
So you've been doing this for 20 years. You went to this seminar that sounds like it was amazing, and we're hearing more about that, like that Western medicine is more open to Eastern practices. As mindfulness has become, it's become very secular and very normal, and it's in businesses, and meditation's in businesses now, and these things are becoming more Westernized. So tell me a little bit about what I want to hear about your journey. So you took this seminar about mind body, and then tell me a little bit about what happened after that.
Yeah. So I started to incorporate a lot of guided imagery with my clients, trying to help them calm their busy minds and to settle the body as well. And then a few years into it, I have a good friend who's a yoga teacher, and we decided to do a couple of workshops together where she would teach the yoga and I would do the guided meditation. And after the first one, I thought, I really want to be able to do the yoga piece of this too, if I offer more classes, which was my intention. So in 2008, I took yoga teacher training. So that was really a nice add-on to that Mind Body Institute training I had taken. So from there, I did start to do more workshops. I really love teaching meditation and guiding it with people. So I offered a number of those, and yoga's really helpful, like doing some of the moving aspects of yoga, the poses, for helping to settle the mind so you can actually be quiet enough to do the meditation. So something about moving the body helps you to quiet it, and then you can sit and have more mindfulness of whatever your object is during your meditation. I've offered many classes and workshops. I'm trying to think then, the next piece was the IFS. So that was 2008, the yoga. And I was in a peer supervision group, and it was about that same time, 2008 or so. And one of my peers had taken the level 1 IFS. So she was talking about this new model of therapy and how it would work when we were presenting a case in our supervision group. And I thought, I really like the sounds of this, these different emotions and feelings, behaviors that we have. She's talking about them as if they're parts and all separate from who we are, that we're not our anxiety or our anger or our guilt, we're us. And these things are our parts of our personality, but not us. And it sounded so compassionate, like instead of criticizing these parts of ourselves that we didn't used to like, we actually approach them and try to get to know them. And I think I was thinking about this, and I've always had a pretty strong inner critic, and I'm sure a lot of people can identify with that just had to get everything right. And when I didn't, my own inner voice would be critical in kind of a mean way. So I loved the idea that the critic was actually trying to help, and the things it was criticizing were just trying to help in their own different ways. So I tell my clients the first part of me that I became friends with was my critic. And I started to call it, and still do, my critic consultant, because it's just trying to help. So we're kind of buddies now, and I listen in to it when it's got something to say, and then I take it from there most of the time. So that's why I came to IFS, Tammy.
I love that. Would you be okay to talk a little bit about how you befriended this critic, your critic consultant?
Well, I think, the model, learning more about the model, the IFS model, just supported that practice of pausing and separating from a part. So first I had to stop and ask it to give me a little bit of room. And I used to, when I was newer to IFS, I would map my parts out on paper. So it helped me to unblend from the critic. So I'd say, what is this all about? Well, it's criticizing me about you should lose a little more weight. You should be exercising more. You shouldn't have said that thing to that person. Look, now they're mad at you. Now they're not going to like you, and so on. So the more unblending I could do, the better I could get to know it and see its positive intention, which, of course, critics are just trying to help us belong, connect, be okay in the world. So I guess it was just continued practice at that, the unblending and being curious, of course, right? One of the qualities of self is just really be curious and hang in there with it.
Did you find that you had parts, this is probably, I know the answer to this question, but did you find that you had parts that didn't like the critic and had to get them to give you space so that you could be curious?
I'm curious, do you have a part that, because I'm not sure right away when you asked me that, and I'm wondering maybe if you answered, I might.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I was thinking is like when I have parts that I don't like, so say my critic, which I think most of us have a critic. So if I think about my critic and I think about trying to get to know my critic, I think that one of the things that gets in the way of me being compassionate or even being curious about it is parts that don't like it. So I end up getting in sort of this tug of war, maybe part that wants to say like, okay, well, I want this critic to be on my side, or, I want to find out, I want to befriend it, but I don't like it. And so if I don't like it, then it's hard to then get to know something I don't like.
Oh, yes, I know what you mean. Well, I was going to say that I think my critic's was one of the strongest parts. It's still pretty strong, but, in a helpful way. I think a part that doesn't like it is when it's being critical of other people in my mind. It's telling me, it's being critical. And so I have a nice part that says, that's not very nice. They're a nice person. That nice part of me, though, as I'm saying this, I realize it actually has a lot of self energy in it. That's my sense of it, because it's saying, be compassionate. So it's almost like prompting, hey, get into self energy, back away, let Cindy in there, because this isn't helpful. This person just has their own, inner family too. So I guess that the nice part sometimes will intervene, but it's probably too nice to not like the critic. I don't know that it's a fight, but yeah, that one would come up when the critic. But I think what you're asking is that I can relate to is that absolutely in my system there are some parts that absolutely do not like the other parts. And sometimes there is a bit of a tug between them.
Well, I'm almost wondering if there becomes a tug between the part of you that wants to be nice and is like, that's not nice, and the critic. For you, maybe it looks like that, or it used to look like that, or the part that's like, I'm critical of the other person, sort of in your head, like the other person did a thing, and then the nice part comes up and says, well, that's not very nice, you need to be nicer. And I'm wondering how that affected the critic.
Well, it certainly gets the conversation going, which is helpful.
Yeah.
And I guess at some point, hopefully I can come in, having noticed both of what they're doing. But sometimes there's a bit of a argument or a not liking of each other. Absolutely.
Well, you just said this thing that I think that is a huge shift and a hard shift. This idea, I can come in. And you said this earlier about I'm not my sadness, I'm not my critic, and I'm not my nice part either, right? There's a little bit of energy, but I'm not my nice part either. So So talk a little bit about this idea that I can come in, they're having this conversation, and then I come in.
Right. Well, you're leading me right into how to access self-energy. And this is something I've been more and more and more interested in. Along with a colleague, I led a yoga IFS workshop in January, and it was called Strengthening Self-Energy Through Yoga and Mindfulness. And that really sealed for me how important it is to find ways to access self-energy, especially when parts are having inner fights, arguments, and you're not feeling well as a result. You're grumpy or down or just angry. So, in comes yoga here. Yoga has 8 branches according to the tradition that I learned. And one of them are the poses that we know, warrior and tree pose and downward dog. Those are the poses. But, another important aspect of yoga is the breath. And, of course, the guided meditation. But in the moment for myself, what I like to use is breath. Like before we started this morning, like while I was waiting for you and you for me, I says, okay, I noticed I have an anxious part. So I sat up straight in my chair and took a really deep breath. And with the top of my inhale, I was imagining the word P-E-A-C-E, peace. And then I exhaled and I let it flow through my body. And I did that 3 times. So that's a way to access for me my self-energy. And then it's a little tricky because I have to notice that my parts are going back and forth first, and then I access self, and then I can be there for them. So, the more we practice, are mindful of our parts, the more we'll notice right away when they're there, and then the deep breath can happen, or whatever method somebody chooses. So I guess I come in with my breath mostly. And then what helps is I notice my body, so the mindfulness, and often I'm tight at my shoulders, so I'll lift them and lower them. Okay, yeah, and then I might circle them a little bit forward, and then a couple times backward, like that. And then another place I get tight is my ab area, so I go there and try to loosen that by just bringing attention, maybe taking a really deep breath, expanding my belly, and then letting it settle as I exhale. So those are some things I do.
I love that. And I hope that listeners are doing what I'm doing. Is you're describing things, I'm doing them with you. So I hope the listeners do that too, like moving shoulders around. They're probably driving in the car. I hope they're doing that. And then noticing a difference.
Yes. Yeah, there's a shift. I wondered also if this would be a time when I could share a yoga hand pose that actually helps people manifest confidence, which can be helpful when you're doing anything like an interview or having to speak in public. So I'll demo this a little bit after I tell you just a tad about what a hand gesture is in yoga. They're called mudras, M-U-D-R-A-S, mudras. So if anyone wants to learn more about them, just Google that after this and you'll find lots of hand yoga poses. So there's a lot of nerve endings in our hands and fingers. So whatever you're symbolizing in your hands can actually move from your hands. Your nerve endings are there. It can move to the nerve beginnings and flow through your whole body, whatever your pose is symbolizing. So everyone can just become aware of their left arm and hand and let both your arms can just be resting easily, kind of next to your body. But bring your left hand in front of your tummy with your palm facing up. Just kind of relax the shoulders as you do this. Then be aware of your right hand and make a very gentle fist with it, but let your thumb be free. And actually, the expression thumbs up. You want your thumb to be straight up in the air, And then let your right hand sit right on top of your left palm with your right thumb facing up, like you're doing a thumbs up to the ceiling there. Hold it really gently in front of you. All right. This pose signifies confidence. Confidence. So you're really gearing up in your hands, all those nerve endings, all that energy towards confidence. So everybody take a really deep inhale, really expand fully, fill up your lungs, inhale, and as you exhale, just imagine confidence flowing through your whole body. We'll do this 2 more times. Really deep inhale, all the way up to the crown of your head. Inhale up there, to your arms, down to your feet. Exhale. This energy just knows where to go. Flows all through you. 1 more time. Inhaling. Let the confidence flow right to your core, right to your heart center, and exhaling it in all directions, to your toes, to your fingertips, crown of your head, filling with confidence, filling. And then just slowly letting that hand pose go, just kind of sensing how that felt. Yeah. It's a real letting go. And when you let go of whatever else you might have been thinking about, there's plenty of room for that confidence to flow into those spaces. And there are various hand poses, for compassion and trust. So it's really a beautiful way to not only access self-energy, but really strengthen it. So that's just a little mudra there for people.
Cindy, that was fantastic. I was just thinking as you're doing that, I wonder, as we were doing that together, it was amazing. At the end, when you said letting go, I thought, I wonder if people feel reluctant to let go or feel scared of like if they have a part of them, like that feels lovely. Well, what gets us, what parts, let me pause and think about what I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think something came up for me with the idea of letting go. And that I wonder if people sometimes have a hard time, parts that get triggered with the idea of letting go.
Yes, I think absolutely, Tammy. And I think I might try this with a client and learn pretty quickly that wasn't so great for them. It's like, no, I didn't really like that type of thing. And so from then on, I try to kind of design what I do in a way that is more comfortable for them. But I also can use the phrase, and I do sometimes, that to the extent that the parts of you can take that in, let them take that in.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Make it just right for them.
Right. So then you're not running over them, or you're not like, parts all get out of the way. We don't want to listen to you. We want to be in self.
And so if there's a part of you that would rather hold on to a little bit, inviting that part to hold on to as much as it would like. Do what is just right for that part. So that's that self to part relationship where you're so aware of, that's me being aware of what their parts need and guiding them to their self to part relationship. Check in with that part. How did it like that guided work I just led? Oh, it wanted less of that? Okay, that's good for me to know. Thank you for that part, for sharing that. Yeah, I don't always get it spot on to what they need, and when I get the feedback, I absolutely make the adjustments until it is just right for them.
Well, but I'm also thinking that it's a beautiful information, so that, if you try to do this type of exercise in session, or even if someone's trying to do it right now and they notice a part that gets in their way, then that's good information for them to have. Okay, here's a part that telling me this thing, or there's a part of me that's like, you're too busy to do this thing. Or, I have parts that are like, you're going to do this every day now. You're going to do this thing that Cindy's saying, you're going to do it every day. I love that, just that beginning of practice of noticing that that's a part of me that's saying that, and that idea of unblending, that it's just, I can stay doing the pose even as I hear a part saying that, and then I can self-depart. Hi, I see you, I hear you, I hear you're having a hard time with that, let me stay with this. And I feel like that's the hardest and the most essential thing about this therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful thing about it, right? It's the most beautiful thing, the self-depart.
Yeah.
It's the hardest to get. It's hard to get that.
Yeah. And you just said it in a nice way. Like you were with your part saying, no, I know you're there. And I know that maybe you're having a little hard time. We're just going to stay with this. It wasn't in a forcing way. But the nice thing there was that the part, because you were speaking with it and in a compassionate way, it totally got you are there. And that's so comforting to our parts to know that, oh, Tammy's there. She seems to have this. She knows what she's doing. She listened to me, so she knows it's not great. But I think I'm going to be okay because she's there. So
Right. That's the idea. And I think I'm able to be compassionate right now because you've just been so compassionate in that guided meditation, and in you were so compassionate. So I'm able to be a little bit softer to my parts right now.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it gets us in that mindset, right? With self-energy. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
You can catch it from somebody else, self-energy too.
Yeah. So tell me what that means, because that's there's all these really weird things of IFS, and that's one of the weird things.
Yeah, that was a part being kind of funny about it. You know, I think I read it maybe in the intro to IFS book, Richard Schwartz, or it could have been anywhere else, right? And in the IFS world, that people are drawn to our self-energy. And when they experience it, you know, like you said, you know, when someone's giving compassion or someone's interested in us or curious about us, it tends to bring, you know, those qualities out in us as well. So you can catch it from somebody else. I mean, you've probably been with people, clients or people in your life where they're all worked up, they're all amped up. And if you're able to access your self-energy, you get your qualities there, and you just kind of stay curious and interested, non-judging, and maybe some compassion flows out, the person starts to settle. You notice that amped up part of them starts to settle. So they're starting to unblend, and guess what that means? They've got some self-energy because they saw yours or experienced it.
Well, and that's a really good point about catching self-energy, because we certainly catch other people's anxiety.
Good point. Good point. Yep.
Right? So if I walk into a room and my friend is there and she's having a hard day and she's really anxious, then all of a sudden I might not even be aware that my heart's starting to race, I'm starting to shake, I'm starting to talk fast, and I might not even realize it till I leave, like, whoa, what was that?
I know. It's like we can easily feed off other people's anxiety or angst. So why not feed off of self-energy? Right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that makes sense. So what helps you know that you're in self? And so there's all of this idea too about like being in self or having more self energy, but however we want to say it or however people think about that, what helps you know that you have more access to self or you're a little more connected to self? What helps you know for you?
So in the moment, how do I know?
Yeah. Like, what does it feel like, or how do you know?
First thing that comes to mind is this physical sense of calm. My muscles are not tight, especially in my core. So it's more of a relaxed feeling, I guess. That's the first thing I notice. I guess that goes with being really into mind-body thinking. And I guess it's also, people use that word spaciousness. For me, it's like the absence of strong parts. Like I don't feel anxious or angry. I just feel calm, clear-minded, I guess. Maybe it's that clarity piece, that other quality of self. So it's feeling calm mind, calm body, and some clarity. That's how I kind of know. I'm not jumping. I often am jumping a part that, what do I have to do next? It's like there's never any peace. It's like, okay, you just finished this. Oh, there must be something else. Okay, what is it next? Tonight I'm entertaining 10 family members. So this week, and then tomorrow I go to Connecticut for graduation with more events. So it's been, as you would know, one thing after the other on the list. So you know when one thing's done, there's something else. Well, when that part of me, the one that keeps me on the list and getting things done, when that one steps back, it's like, what a nice feeling, at least for this moment. And that's self-energy too, just being calm and in the moment, mindful. So long answer, that's how self-energy feels to me. There's another level to it when I'm with someone, and then the other qualities can come in of, curiosity and compassion.
Let's go back to this list and all the stuff that you have to do, because that's a great example that I think everyone can relate to, that I've got a list of stuff that needs to be done. And so I finished doing one thing, and you probably have some kind of higher energy because I just did a thing. And then how do you pause yourself to take a pause before you go to the next thing on the list?
Well, once I notice that my mind's doing a little spinning and going one thing to another, that monkey mind thing, it's, the monkey swings from one branch to the other and there's no stopping. Once I notice, and usually there's a little distress there, like, oh, I'm getting crabby or tired. So I notice, and when I come in, it's like, all right, pause. I actually, talk to that part that's kind of going from one thing to the other. It's like, we need a little break here. So I actually do, I don't always use the word pause, but it's like I do take one. It's like, wait a second, let's sit down for a second. Or let's make a list so that you're not having 7 things swirling. We'll put them down so that you won't have to keep thinking about them. And I think another thing, it's not so much in the moment because it has to be planned, but I have been using a meditation app called Insight Timer, which some of your listeners may have heard of. So they're all different lengths. I'll just, okay, I have 14 minutes right now. I'll do this one, this quieting one. So that's helpful during a busy week too. I know there's that pull of, I have a part that doesn't want to stop because I got stuff to do. But I try to remind myself, my part. I remind my part. You taking those 14 minutes will make me so much more efficient the rest of the day. You get more done when you come from a calmer place. So.
Well, and it sounds like you talk to the part. You're very aware this part is driving me. And so you use that language of I get that you're wanting to get a lot of stuff done. And so I hear you, I see you, I feel you. And I'm going to remind you that if we are calm and clear-minded, then we'll be even more effective.
Exactly.
Self or talking to the part as you notice it, and however way you notice it. And for you, it's in your body, but however you notice that. And then you talk to that part and you're compassionate and you're kind and you get it. You totally get why that part's trying to get stuff done. And so then with talking to it that way, it settles down and then you're able to do the meditation and then it's like everyone's happy.
Exactly. That's a nice way of putting it. Again, it's that self comes in and self depart and everyone's on board. And like you said, everybody's happy.
Yeah. Well, and what a difference if the critic comes on board. I'm imagining the critic is like, I have found myself, Cindy, literally walking in a circle. And then as soon as I walk in a circle, that's my sign of what are you doing right now? You just are walking. You just turned around. You just twirled. But then sometimes it has that energy. What are you doing? That's that kind of Prince to Betsy, you just walked in a circle. And sometimes that feels a little critical. I need to get that critical part to step back a little bit to be okay, I'm trying to do 50 things, take a minute. But it's if that critical that's yelling at me for walking in a circle, I'm not really going to get anywhere.
That's right. That actually happened to me yesterday. walked into a room. I'm supposed to be, did a thing, and then, okay, and the mind is starting to chatter. Okay, and after this, yeah, and what should I bring to Connecticut? And no, I need different. My critic actually steps in and says, stop, shush, what are you doing? So like you said, it's like a criticism of the part that is going wild trying to figure things out, just trying to do its job. And the critic is saying, you're not doing a good job. Knock it off. This is ridiculous. And so then it's a good time for me to step in and say, well, this is interesting. This is very interesting. And by the way, nothing's getting done while you two are having this little war. So, yeah.
I love that. And that's something I think that you've said a couple of times that is just such a huge takeaway, is the idea that the two parts are arguing or, bickering or having a dialogue, and that you step in with like, hi guys, I hear you, see you, I'm noticing you. You're not over identified with either one. You're just noticing this play that's kind of playing out in front of you. And you're like, hi, I see you. And even that sort of, you smiled and you're like, oh, this is interesting, in this really calm way that I think my parts and your parts probably really love that, when we just go, oh, hi, this is interesting.
Yeah, there's somebody out there, the parts are thinking, there's somebody out there right here that's noticing us. They seem to know what they're doing, what they're talking about. We kind of know them. And that's the thing, I'm thinking of clients, how you probably have this experience where they'll say, well, it happened so quickly, it happened so automatically, I didn't know. And so whatever's going on for them, whether it's one part doing something or two parts fighting, they're just not aware of it. And they figure, what can I possibly do? And you and I can, we're showing now that we used to probably do a lot of that too. And it's all about practicing mindfulness, being aware of, I guess the first thing, it always starts with mindfulness. And that what I come to see is such an important quality of self is you really need calmness first to be able to notice what's going on. If you're not calm, you cannot see what's happening. So it's that, again, that mindfulness piece. And whatever we can teach our clients and ourselves about how to pause and be in the moment, you get used to stopping and noticing and becoming a witness. That's a yogic term, to what's going on. So people just need to keep practicing, and us therapists keep supporting that practice for them.
Yeah, and practicing ourselves, right? I mean, I think if I'm all wound up about something and then a client comes in and they're all wound up about something, it doesn't help if my part that's all like, la, 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 and just joins with their part and we just, la, 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 and you have all this high energy.
Yes, yeah, being wound up together for a little bit.
Yes.
Then inviting the pause. Often I do that, in my work. It's like, can we pause for a second? I'm noticing this. And then you see the person shift. It's like, oh, whatever, especially if they're talking fast and updating on the week. And it's like, can we just pause? So it's good for them and very good for us too.
I would love to end with you leading, no pressure, with you leading us in some sort of guided meditation or whatever makes sense about the weather.
That is really cool that you're asking that to be about the weather, because what I immediately have in mind has something to do with the sun. And I know from a previous podcast of yours that the sun is really important to you as a symbol of self-energy and your spiritual world. So
yes, that's true. And with all this rain, it's hard. I'm having a hard time. Yeah,
yes.
People are.
Okay, so how long would you like? 2 minutes or so, or?
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay. So I just want to invite everyone to notice themselves in their physical space and see if there's any muscle tension that they would like to release and let go of. Do what's just right for you. Just calming, see if we can bring some calmness to our mind, body, our inner system. And maybe you can begin to imagine that inside you and all around you is this image of the sun with just the right temperature for you. And that the sun is like your self energy. That sun within you is just filled with the qualities of self. Calmness. And as you become calm and calmer, be kind of curious about what's inside, how you're feeling, how your body feels, whether you notice any parts. And maybe you can extend some compassion, just like the rays of the sun. So if you can kind of visualize the sun has all these rays, and there'd be 8 of them. And those are all qualities of self. Some of you may know what those are, but let's just consider the calmness, curiosity, and compassion right now, really flowing from the core of you, right where the sun is, in all directions. It's as if with each breath you take in, you can further kind of bloom that self-energy, that warmth of the sun in all directions. So kind of imagine that sun, that sunshine, its rays moving through your core, down towards your legs, your knees, your feet. And each time you breathe in, you activate even more warmth and sun. Breathing in deeply, allow that energy to move through your entire back and front, and down your arms. And one more deep breath. Feeling the warmth, that ray, moving all the way up to your neck and to the crown of your head, your whole body, taking in as much self-energy as feels right. Letting the calmness just flow, head to toe, fingertip to fingertip. Just one more moment right here in this place, and however you're feeling right now is just fine. Letting your inner sun shine. And as we bring this slowly towards a close, know that your inner sunshine can also shine on the outside, and that you can bring it with you all day long, all day long. So just bring your awareness now back to your physical body, right where we started. And if your eyes were closed, you can gently open them and let the sun shine in and out. And I'll say namaste as I end that, which means that the light, or let's say the sunshine within me, honors the sunshine with inside you and all of your listeners.
Thanks for hanging out today. If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe. And if you really like this episode, share it with a friend and leave a review. You can follow me on Instagram at IFS Tammy and join our community on Facebook at the One Inside Podcast. Talk to you next time.